Well, I mean, let's start at the beginning. I mean, how does a Durban boy make this transition from Durban boy to filmmaker?
I was never going to be a screenwriter. I was always going to be a musician. I thought, well, film's not really my thing.
There were two things that occurred to me when I sat down and spoke with producer and screenwriter Lee Thompson. The first was his optimism. Now, I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's absolutely true. In a day and age where it's kind of easy to become negative and jaded, Lee Thompson, he bucks that trend with his easy laugh and his unspoken philosophy of turning negativity into positivity and making opportunities out of challenges. And I know that also sounds cheesy. Lee does this unconditionally, honestly, and with an almost childlike kind of curiosity. The second thing that I noticed, or at least felt, was this distinct sensation that something special is about to happen with Lee Thompson. And maybe in this episode, or one of the next episodes to follow, I will be posting one every week, you'll get the same feeling. In today's episode, Lee is going to speak about his unconventional start into the film world, as well as his just as unconventional writing process.
I mean, I like to write as often as I can, but I don't force it. I do not force it at all.
Although I'd like to say that this was an interview, and it kind of was, it felt more like a conversation between two people that had known each other for a long time. So, fan of film, fan of horror, I invite you to pull up a chair, sit down, and join in the conversation. Welcome to Den of Horror.
Are you nuts? It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, and it's an honor to have you. Well, I mean, let's start at the beginning. I mean, how does a Durban boy, make this transition from Durban boy to filmmaker, to producer and writer?
It's such a long and involved story. I won't bore you with the long version. I was never going to be a screenwriter. I was always going to be a musician. I always wrote stories and stuff. I've always had quite an imagination, being an only child. So I've always made things up. But basically, I was a musician and I was a photographer. That's what I've been for the longest of times, So I had a good eye for, a good picture, good ear for sound, that kind of thing. So being a creative, I never turned down an opportunity before I know what it has in store for me. And I was doing a job last year at a school just up the drag here near Canterbury. And a friend of mine hired me to do it as a photographer. And on the job, I met a videographer, this guy, Sean, lovely guy. And it was a 3-day job. So we got to know each other pretty well. And we got chatting. I told him that I wrote short stories and that kind of thing. I had no intention of doing anything with them. I just put them on medium.com, it's just for people to read, just something to keep me ticking over creatively. And he said, listen, we've got this filmmakers meetup in Margate, just down the drag. And, you should come along, could be quite fun. You could meet some nice people. I thought, well, film's not really my thing. Seriously. And I said, I'll come along, I might meet some nice people. You never know. It's something to do. It's literally like that. So I went along. I loved it. There were so many creatives there, from directors, producers, sound guys, the whole shebang. And I just got chatting, and I thought, well, this is quite fun, actually. I quite like it. So that was the first time. Then I thought, you know what? I'm going to try my hand at script writing. I've never done it. Never done. I'll just give it a go. See, and the minute I started, I loved it. The discipline was so different to just plain storytelling. The fact that you had to be in the present tense, you had to be more visual. You can tell people how the actors were feeling. You had to be so disciplined in how you approached it. I thought, this is for me. I love this. And I just spewed. I spewed forth. And it just came out of me. And then basically one thing led to the next. I gave my scripts to someone to read. They asked me to write a script for them. We filmed a short. I met another guy called James Fox, who ran a horror production company in Whitstable. I mean, what are the chances of meeting a guy like that? He asked me to meet. He read my scripts. He loved them. And he was actually great for me because we bounced off each other a lot at the start. And he's actually a trained screenwriter. So it was the perfect match for me. This fledgling nothing with someone who was actually give me the time of day. Before I knew it, I was filming my first short film earlier this year, a proper production, with, a proper team and a budget and everything.
Gaze into the abyss.
What a story. It's just, it really sounds and feels so organic,
It totally is. That's how I operate. Everything about me is organic. Like I said, I never turn down an opportunity before I know what it has in store for me. Right. It's just the way I operate, and it's got me this far, and it hasn't killed me just yet.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, what doesn't kill you will make you stronger, right?
You hope.
You hope, right? For you, what is different about, from a writer's perspective, between writing a prose story versus writing a script? What are the challenges? What's the difference?
Well, writing prose, you can be so much more flowery with your descriptive language, and you can really go to town because you're basically telling people what to feel, what to look at, all that kind of stuff. You've got the whole gamut of things to use. There are no restrictions whatsoever. You can literally do what you want, which is great. I mean, let's face it, it's great. But when it comes to script writing, like I was saying earlier, you can't tell people what the actor's feeling. So you have to be really creative and clever with the way that you describe their movements as characters, what they're doing, their emotions are in their face and their body movements and that kind of thing. You have to try and describe that person walking from A to B and make it as interesting as possible. People think it's an easier way of writing. That's what I've heard. I don't agree. I've read some scripts now. I've made it a thing of mine to study really good scripts and look at some bad ones. And the difference is stark. I don't know if that was a great description of it, but it's the one I'm giving you.
That's the one that I want, man. Good. No, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Something that I love asking filmmakers, whether it's in an interview or just, for myself, having a chat with someone, I love trying to find out what each writer's writing process is. It's different, and really each process is kind of like how you grapple with your writing demons. So what is Lee Thompson's writing process like?
I was actually talking to a friend about this last night. He asked me something similar. I don't really have a process, which might sound odd. I know this amazing screenwriter. His name's Mark Stay. He's just written well, he hasn't just written. He wrote the film Unwelcome, which is a horror movie that's just come out from Warner Brothers. And he lives just around the corner from me. And he's got a process where he writes books as well, great books. And he will sit down and he'll make himself write every day, no matter what. And he'll tweet about it. I've written 2,000 words today. What have you done? And he says it keeps him going. I mean, I like to write as often as I can, but I don't force it. I do not force it at all. I'm constantly coming up with ideas in my head. And I'd say if there's maybe one little process, that's having loads of things on the go at the same time. So I will not focus on one script for too long. Like at the moment, I've got probably 10 scripts on the go. And once I kind of don't feel the one that I'm in, I'll jump to the other one and start going. And then I'll almost start to miss the other one and maybe go back. And then maybe they both get a bit stale, and then I'll go into something else. But I find that really helps my creative process. They say that men can't multitask, but I think maybe on this occasion I can, because it's the one thing that keeps me on my toes. So I don't have I'm not going to sit down and write 3 pages today. I might write 20 pages, in an hour, whatever. Recently I finished writing a feature film. It didn't take me very long because I just focused. So I thought I might have to set myself a goal, but it didn't turn out the way at all. It just flowed because I let myself be creative and I didn't have any barriers. I think for me, I think a process would be a barrier to my creativity. I think I just let it flow.
Okay. So the whole idea of plotting a script, you know, there are all these books out there, Save the Cat and, you know, the Nutshell Process and all that stuff, which all of which I'm sure and, you know has, they all have some gems to offer. But for you, that wouldn't work. So for you having like a structure.
Saying that, I have read Save the Cat, and his structure for a feature film is really, really good. I mean, it works. He's proved it works, basically. So I actually did start out with that structure for the feature film that I wrote, and it got me about halfway, and I kind of meandered off on my own path. So I thought I'd just give it a try. This is my first feature script. What have I got to lose? You know, I'll try and see if I can pigeonhole some of the action into what he's planned out structurally, and it did work. It really helped for a while, but like I say, he also says in the book, you know, this is just a guideline. You don't have to stick to it. It's worked for me. You might have a different way of doing things. And yeah, sure enough, halfway through, it felt like I needed to go in another direction. You know, he says some storylines are linear, some are not so non-linear, that kind of stuff. You know, but I mean, people have different ways of doing things, you know, and whatever works for you, works for you. It's all about your creativity, and at the end of the day, it's about the end product, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, let's face it. If the end product's rubbish, maybe you should look at some structure and some process. I will do an outline for sure. I think that's a healthy thing to do. At least it gives you some plot points. You know, that's great. But I think if you plan too far ahead, you get bogged down in that plan. It's probably not the best advice, I'll be honest. But for me, I like to have fun, and fun to me is not planning too far ahead.
Oh, that's really, I think that in itself is advice. You know, that's definitely a gem to take from this.
Hey everyone, just before you go, remember next week part 2 of that interview is going to be posted, so be sure to stick around. Have a great one, be safe, be happy, and most of all, be horror. Ciao.